Today we're doing something a bit different, talking through a recent game that I had on Tabletop Simulator, with my Imperial Soup weirdness against the Tyranids of MagikarpUsedFly. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, for the first rundown of an actual game of 40k that I've done on the channel, so I apologise if the format's a bit experimental and different to what you're used to seeing. This won't be a standard video bat rep that you might see on other channels, it's more sort of going to be an after action report, talking through the plays turn by turn, and how the game unfolded. The whole stream is kind of long, but if you are interested in seeing bits of it, then I'll put a link to it down in the video description below. It was streamed on Magikarp's Dice Check channel. In any case, the game was a 2k point game of Warhammer 40k, and it's been done as part of the Warp Wanderers Tabletop Simulator Tournament, which is a small 10-person event mainly made of YouTubers. There's plenty of other big names out there, including Scary, Bricky and Pleasant Kenobi, and my other games are going to be against Implausible Nature's Black Templars and Almost Pro Gaming. I'm certainly looking forward to them. In any case, let's get back to this game and talk through the lists that were played. First up, we have my own Imperial Soup creation, which I'll fully admit probably isn't the most sensible army list I've ever built. I'm a bit new to Tabletop Simulator, and I couldn't resist trying out a bunch of units from different factions, namely Cerberus Raiders and Catastron Breachers from the AdMech, and the Mortifiers from the Sisters of Battle. So we have a weird concoction of an AdMech Patrol, a Sisters Spearhead, and a Blood Angels Vanguard. And because the Warlord isn't even from the AdMech Patrol, it's from the Blood Angels, it means that we start out on a pretty limited 4 CP. I think dropping down to 2 factions would be more competitive, but at least we have a whole ton of ludicrously threatening units here. For the AdMech Patrol, we just have a naked Engine Seer to sit on objectives and repair the Cataphrons, and 3 units of 5 Catastron Breachers, each with an Arc Rifle and Arc Claw, and they're in the custom Forge world that gives them extra hits on 5s and 6s with both of those weapons, meaning they're just incredibly solid units to hold objectives, and they'll deal a massive range punch to enemy units, particularly to Space Marines and to vehicles. There's also 2 units of 5 Cerberus Raiders. I'd argue one of the premier Imperial screening units. They can move up turn 1, and then they have a really nasty stratagem to fall back when they're charged, leaving the enemy floundering. For the Sisters of Battle, we have a Valorous Heart Spearhead, again led by a Barebones Canoness, who's just going to be around to give the Retributors some rerolls. The main reason to include the Sisters are these lovely Mortifiers. We've got 2 units of 2 Mortifiers and 1 unit of 3 Mortifiers. They're each 60 points each. They're armed with 2 Penitent Flails and 2 Heavy Bolters, meaning that they have a fairly respectable amount of shooting in themselves, but they have a ludicrous 15 attacks each in close combat, all at strength 6, AP -2 and damage 1. They're some of the main anti-infantry in the army, just being able to decimate hordes if even a few of them make contact. We also have a unit of Retributors, 5 of them with 3 Multi-Melters and 2 Armorium Cherubs. They were 130 points. I know they've gone up a little bit in the recent FAQ. They're going to be aiming to outflank with one of the few precious remaining command points, which can put them and the Canoness back in strategic reserve. They can move and shoot with no penalty, so on the turn that they drop, they should be putting out 10 shots, hitting on 3s, re-rolling 1s, or with a multi-melter profile. Last but not least, we have a Blood Angels Vanguard, led by a captain on a bike with 2 chainswords, one of which is upgraded to the fearsome Teeth of Terror. He is the Warlord, and he's got the Gift of Foresight traits from Codex Blood Angels. This allows him to reroll 1 hit, 1 wound, and 1 failed save per turn, and it's an incredibly good Warlord trait for a Smash Captain, making him far more survivable. And with 8 attacks with the Teeth of Terror, he's quite likely to be making at least 1 failed hit and wound roll, so most of the time it'll be like he's got an extra 2 attacks as well. We then have 3 small units of Sanguinary Guard, each at 150 points. In most games I want 2 of them deep striking, and then re-rolling the charge with a command point if necessary, and 1 starting on the board to escort the captain, as if they're near him as he's the Warlord, they'll be having +1 to hit and re-roll 1s. Finally we have the Eradicators, which again have changed since in the recent points update. Much like the Retributors, they're just putting out a fair bit more undercosted Melterfire, and are going to be aiming to hunt their heavy armour in the enemy army. In general, the game plan is for the Cataphrons to sit back and hold home objectives, the Cerberus to move up and contest the midfield early, while also screening enemy charges, and then counter-attack them hard with the rest of the army. So here's the list that I was facing then. This is Magikarp's Tyranid Monster Mash, making great use of the recently reduced Tyranid Forge World monsters, the Dimeshurons and the Scythe Hyradules. These guys got a lot stronger in the recent Imperial Armor book, and I can attest that they're very scary threats on the field. He's got many more command points than me, as is fielding them in a single battalion, and that battalion is a custom hive fleet with +1 to hit for monsters on the turn that they charge, and 6-inch pile-in moves. The Dimetrodons and the Hierodules both have 18 wounds. The Dimetrodons are toughness 7 and the Hierodules toughness 8, so that's an awful lot of monster to be trying to gun off the table. The Dimetrodons are a bit more combat orientated, they're able to jump over enemy units, they have a 5+ invul save, and they also have a nice special rule where if they kill a model, they get to vomit mortal wounds all over the rest of the unit. The Hierodules are maybe a little bit slower and tankier, but they do have a nice acid spray attack, which is good for melting enemy infantry nearby, and it did a lot of work in the game. Supporting these enormous bugs are the Swarm Lord for his excellent double movement shenanigans, and he took Catalyst and Onslaught as his psychic powers, and then a Brood Lord with Paroxysm and +1 to cast from some sort of Euro Barb thing. Finally, there are a fair few more supporting units, a unit of 3 Ripper Swarms, 10 Termagants, and a huge unit of 19 Genestealers with Acid Maws, which were put into the list to help deal with enemy hordes should any be encountered. Finally, there's 2 Lictors, pretty excellent cheap little nuisance units, for stealing objectives and table quarters as needed. Really cool to see quite such a heavily melee focused Nids list. Tyranids aren't exactly top tier right now, but the 3 Dimetrodon and 2-sized Hierodule build does seem to be cropping up quite a bit in theory crafting I've seen, and it certainly looks like it's one of the strongest ways to run Nids right now. I must admit, for all that though, I think I was quite relieved not to see Exocrines or Hiveguard on the table, both of which would have caused me problems. So here we have the map that we were playing on. It was a desert map with a decent amount of line of sight blocking terrain in each deployment zone, and then a big central ruin. We were playing the Battle Lines mission from the Grand Tournament mission pack, so that's 4 objectives, 1 in each deployment zone and 2 in the middle, and it's got the unique secondary objective Vital Ground for holding the 2 objectives in the middle and the 1 in your opponent's deployment zone, and both of us chose to take that one. Otherwise, we also both picked Engage on all fronts, and Magikarp picked Deploy Scramblers, where I took Bring It Down. Again, we were playing under the old rules, so I'd get 3 points for each one of the big bugs that I brought down. I think I might have struggled a bit more for which secondary to pick if that one had only been worth 2 victory points for each big bug. Here's my deployment. From left to right we have some Mortifiers guarding a unit of Captivrons on the left, 5 Sanguinary Guard in that building, and the Bike Captain set up just next to them, a unit of 5 Cerberus out front and centre, and then 2 more units of 5 Catavrons guarding the home field objective. The Eradicators are skulking behind cover in the other ruin, and then on the right flank hidden by that tree we have the other unit of Cerberus and a unit of 3 Mortifiers. I had 2 units of Sanguinary Guard and the Retributors and the Canoness all in reserve. For Magikarp we have 2 Dimetrodons up on the north flank, 1 on the south flank, and both of the Hierodules pushing down the centre. The 10 Termagants are hiding behind the south building, and then pretty much most of the rest is hidden behind that other big ruin, the Swarm Lord, Brood Lord and Genestealers. The Rippers and Lictors go into reserve to be disruptive and claim objectives in the later game. After all this, we rolled for first turn, and it was Magikarp to go first. I'm not going to lie, I was really hoping for first turn in this one. Hopefully it might have given me the chance to put the hurt on one big bug with one uninterrupted turn of firepower. For pre-game moves, I moved up both units of Cerberus Raiders to form a bit of a screen, basically the main aim being to hold back his really big monsters. As expected, pretty much all of the big bugs surge forward, and to gain extra movement, the lead Dimetrodon on the left-hand side of this photo advances, preparing to receive Onslaught from the Swarm Lord to allow him to advance and charge. I had a bit of good luck though, and when Onslaught was cast, I managed to deny it with the Sisters 4+ Denial stratagem, and using one of the precious 3 command points I started with. This was really key though, as it stopped that Dimetrodon getting a first turn charge. With the Swarm Lord's double movement, it easily would have made it into my battle lines. Catalyst went off successfully on him though, so he got a 5+ Feel No Pain for the next turn. Because that Dimetrodon could no longer charge as he'd advanced and he hadn't had Onslaught casted on him, the Swarm Lords instead decided to double move those Genestealers, which you can now see at the top centre of the picture. These guys are easily making a first turn charge now. I have to admit, it does surprise me just how far Genestealers can move when combined with the Swarm Lord. I guess I hadn't considered move blocking them quite as much, seeing as I was expecting that double move to go on the big bug. For Magikarp's only shooting, he opens fire with those Hierodules, and their nasty Acid Flamer attack melts quite a lot of the Cerberus. It's 3 out of the unit on the left, and 2 die out of the unit on the right. After that, we're on for charges. The Dimetrodon on the right flank in this picture attempts to charge those Cerberus Raiders there, but they use the other 2 command points for Tactica Obliqua, falling back 12 inches and preventing him charging. And of course the Genestealers charge, and they declare on most of my firebase to be honest, successfully getting into the Eradicators and the 2 units of Cataphrone Breachers on my home objective. So here's the only combat of this turn, 19 Genestealers piling into the 2 units of Cataphrons, and they also managed to tag the Eradicators as well, despite being behind the wall. However, they don't roll super hot for their damage output, and they're not all that effective against the Cataphrons. They only manage to kill one of them. In return, the breaches are actually pretty much ideally placed to kill the Gene Stealers. Exploding arc attacks that wound on 3s mean that the combination of 2 units of breaches and the Eradicators with their Blood Angels +1 to wound take down the Gene Stealers to a very small number indeed. I believe just 4 of them are left after the combat, and Magikarp chooses to auto-pass their morale. Crucially, being reduced to so few numbers means that the Eradicators get free and they're going to be able to shoot next turn, which frankly is really quite fortunate. It really made me respect just how lucky I got not having the Dimecheron doing this. It could have achieved almost as much tagging, and it would have actually killed a unit of Cataphrons if it had got into them, rather than just killing one of them. I suspect Magikarp should have probably only locked up 2 units rather than 3, as it would have meant far more Gene Stealers alive for the next turn, and I'd have to divert other things to help deal with them. As it is though, they still lock up these 2 big 5-man units of Cataphrons, which is a bit of a blow for next turn's shooting. So now we get to my turn 1, and we're leading a bit of a counter-attack. On the north flank, the Cerberus pile onto the objectives, and the Mortifiers move up to be ready to charge that Dimecheron on the northern flank, and the Eradicators just pop out of cover to be able to get line of sight on it as well. On the southern flank, I decide to move just absolutely everything forward to try and charge down that lead Dimecheron. There's 2 units of Mortifiers there, the Captain on bike, and the unit of 5 Sanguinary Guard. I was kind of planning out the combat phase here, trying to kill the one on the northern flank with mainly shooting, then fight first with a unit of 3 Mortifiers in melee to try and finish it off, except that the Dimecheron on the southern flank is quite likely to interrupt. It might kill 1 unit, and hopefully the rest will be able to still put paid to it. In the shooting phase, the Eradicators fire to great effect, and between them and 1 unit of Mortifiers, they take the Dimecheron on the northern flank down to 4 wounds, though while being protected by Catalyst, the one on the southern flank still has a pretty whopping 11 wounds remaining. The Mortifiers did most of the good work on this guy. The only squad of Cataphrons that weren't locked up did pretty much nothing. In melee, I managed to get the Sanguinary Guard, Captain, and 1 unit of Mortifiers into the southern Dimecheron, and the unit of 3 Mortifiers into the northern one. I actually opted to fight first with the Sanguinary Guard, as I figured that we had so many wounds remaining that we really needed their damage output, and then Magikarp chooses to interrupt with that same Dimecheron, killing the Sanguinary Guard, and killing all but 1 of the Sanguinary Guard. The Captain and the Mortifiers then get to work, and both of the Dimecherons go down, and we manage to score a few points for table quarters and bring it down. So now we're into Magikarp's turn 2, and we basically have quite a lot of our units standing in front of his bogs, who are all going to be able to get very easy charges on exactly what they want. His last remaining Dimecheron uses the Swarm Lord's boosted movement, and goes to engage and kill those breaches on the top left. The Swarm Lord and the Hierodule go to engage the Mortifiers on the bottom left, and the Hierodule on the right flank cooks the last of the Cerberus with its Flamer, and gets ready to charge the unit of 3 Mortifiers. The last of the Sanguinary Guard dies to smite, and the Brood Lord prepares to charge the Captain on bike. The combats here are really quite devastating. The Hierodule on the northern flank in this picture picks up all 3 of those Mortifiers, and the one on the southern flank kills the 2 that it engaged, and the Dimecheron eats all 5 of those Cataphron breaches that it engaged. Perhaps the most crucial combat though is the Brood Lord charging the Captain. The Brood Lord rolls a bit poorly, and the Captain rolls very well on his invul saves, only taking 3 wounds from him, and I even managed to forget that he has his reroll armor save as well, so he could have potentially even saved those. In return, the Captain picks up the Teeth of Terror and casually kills the Brood Lord. It's honestly really quite a big swing. It's so helpful to still have that Captain alive. Magikarp does do some crafty consolidating though. He locks up the Mortifiers with the Dimecheron, who only do some chip damage to him, and the Swarm Lord piles into the Captain to prevent him activating normally next turn. The Swarm Lord is down to 10 wounds at this point. He took a couple from a dying Mortifier. Those guys have a very nice special rule that allows them to have a chance of dealing mortal wounds to nearby units when they're killed in melee. That was a big turn though. The reserves are certainly going to have to do some work when they come in. So now we're on to my turn 2, and this is after movement when the Sanguinary Guard and Retributors have come on. I chose to fall back with both the Captain and the Mortifiers to give myself the best choice of shooting, though the way it panned out I probably shouldn't have fallen back the Captain and just kept him in close combat with the Swarm Lord to be more of a distraction. The fallback didn't really achieve all that much, and he'd still be within heroic intervention range of the Swarm Lord if he didn't get engaged. The Eradicators move up to be within 12-inch range of the Hierodule on the northern flank, who's just off screen in this picture. The Retributors appear from the strategic reserve next to the Dimecheron, so they do have 12-inch range on him, and the Sanguinary Guard appear on the bottom right hand of this photo, all ready for a 9-inch charge on the Swarm Lord. Despite having an absolute ton of melter shots to unload this turn, the Dimecheron just pretty much refused to die. He did pretty well, making a lot of invul saves, and my guys just didn't really want to wound him. It took the Retributors 2 units of Servitors, and then eventually I had to commit the Eradicators to killing him as well, meaning that they couldn't shoot at the Hierodule which they had range on. It meant that nothing was spare for other targets, such as the Swarmlord. The Sanguinary Guard then made their charge against the Swarmlord. I think I had to use a command point reroll for this, but they got in. And I realised I'd made a bit of a mistake, as I'd forgotten that the Swarmlord's 4+ invul goes up to a 3+ when he's in melee. I think it was one of the sillier things I'd done in this game, to be honest. In any case, despite its 20 attacks hitting on 2s rerolling 1s, and +1 to wound with 2 damage each, the Swarmlord very much remained standing after that melee. He failed 2 saves, leaving him down to 6 wounds. He kills all but one of the Sanguinary Guard in return, and the last one decides to run away. Honestly, as turns go, this one was quite a bad one. Pretty much my entire army had been in a position to deal major damage to the Tyranids, and they only managed to bring down one of the Dimecherons. I did manage to get a few points for engage on all fronts, though Magikarp swings into the lead on primaries at this point, due to his Hierodule on the other flank controlling the midfield objective. Moving on, we have Magikarp's turn 3 next. Both Hierodules move up to engage my main firebase, Elixir appearing on the southern objective in this photo to hold it in the other one's absence. The Swarmlord stays on the middle objective to kill the Bike Captain, and the unit of 3 Rippers that had deep strike last turn, they move up to take and hold the midfield objective on the northern flank. The Swarmlord actually has a bit of a bad time with his psychic phase. He perils himself and brings himself down to 3 wounds. The melee that follows is pretty quick for the centre of the board. One of the Hierodules kills the Eradicators, and the other one wipes out a big unit of 5 Cataphrons. The Swarmlord, though, he is quite heavily bracketed now, and on top of this he rolls incredibly poorly indeed, only getting 2 wounds on the Bike Captain, which he passes one of the saves, and he passes the other with that Gift of Foresight reroll ability, which I'm a really big fan of by this point. Again though, as the Swarmlord is such a tank in close combat, despite an absolute ton of strength 5 attacks with the Blood Angels buff, he still doesn't manage to put the big bug down. He is now alive on just 1 wound remaining. I'll be honest, I've got incredibly lucky there with the Bike Captain. Again, that would have been another big swing if he had managed to kill him. Again though, things really aren't great on the objective front. Magikarp has 2 and I have 1, and that's only because of the obsec that the Cataphrons have on my home objective. So now we move on to my turn 3 then, and I do have another chance to bring things back. The Bike Captain falls back towards Magikarp's home objective. The Mortifiers stomp up next to the Swarmlord to try and engage the Ripper Swarm, and I drop my last unit of Sanguinary Guard, and this time rather than going after the big bugs, I decide to try and clear Magikarp's home objective and score some points. Again, my shooting phase doesn't exactly go to plan. I fire the last unit of Cataphrons, the Mortifiers and the Sanguinary Guard all at the Swarmlord, only needing to do 1 wound's worth of damage, but literally nothing gets through, and I'm forced to fire the Retributors at him as well. He does finally go down to the Melter, but that means that the Retributors can't do any damage to those Hierodules, pretty effectively losing me the battle for my own home objective. For combat, the only major things are trying to clear these 2 objectives. The Sanguinary Guard do manage to make their charge on the Gaunts, which actually might be the biggest single swing in the entire game. If they'd failed their charge here, then it would have meant that I wouldn't have scored that objective, and Magikarp would have. Again, they didn't need one of the precious command rerolls to get in, meaning that they easily pick up the squad, as opposed to just sitting fairly uselessly in the midfield that turn. On the southern objective, the Mortifiers charge in and manage to kill the Ripper Swarms. They were quite likely to with 30 attacks, but if one Ripper Swarm had clung on, then it would have been another big swing on that objective, and it could have been pretty vital for scoring, so I had some very good luck in this charge phase. In terms of scores at this point, it is really quite close. Magikarp has achieved his scramblers with the lictors each turn, and managed to hold the northern midfield objective on 2 turns in a row, giving him a decent amount of primary points, plus some extra ones for vital ground. I'm actually slightly ahead on engage on all fronts, due to the Genestealers not being in either table quarter on turn 1, because they were trying to engage multiple units. For me, I've been outscored on the primaries, but I've done okay on Bring It Down, taking out 4 of the big bugs, seeing as the Swarmlord counts. On turn 4 though, it's looking quite good from a primary point of view. Magikarp only scores the 5 points for the Lictor on the midfield objective, as the Breaches are still obsecking away the one in my home field. One Hierodule quite expectedly goes for the Cataphron Destroyers to wipe them out, and his Flamer attack wipes out the Enginseer as well, and the other one goes after the Retributors. I do kind of wonder if Magikarp might have been better served going after the Mortifiers on the other midfield objective this time. I know the Retributors might be one way that I can kill those Hierodules, but they aren't actually going to score any points of themselves because they're too far away from the objectives. If those Mortifiers had died, then that would deny me a fair few points from now on. In any case though, the Retributors are quickly dispatched by the flame attack from the Hierodule. It goes through all of them. The Catavrons are killed by the other one charging onto my home objective, though my Canoness has a kind of lucky escape, as the Hyrule base is just too big to fit through that gap to make the charge on her. She spends the rest of the game skulking out of line of sight in that corner, just getting some engage on all fronts points. My turn 4 is really quite good for scoring the objectives. We have 2 primaries for the first time in the game, and they also score 5 points for vital grounds. The Bike Captain moves over to take the home field objective from Magikarp, and the Sanguinary Guard move forward to kill that Lictor, as they've got the shorter charge out of the 2 units. The Mortifiers actually managed to do a fair amount of damage to the Hyrule, chipping 6 wounds off the thing with their heavy bolters, though it's still nowhere near to going down. And in the assault phase, the Sanguinary Guard charge and kill the Lictor, taking the other midfield objective. After such a good round of scoring and Magikarp only being on 1 objective, it does look like I've got ahead significantly to swing the game. Though the Hyrule has the last laugh on the Sanguinary Guard, in Magikarp's turn 5 he moves forward, flames one down, and then kills the rest in melee. The other Hyrule doesn't have range to take on those Mortifiers, and in my turn the Bike Captain and Mortifiers don't really have much to do, and just remain sat on their respective objectives. So overall, here are the final scores. The game was really quite close, a few swings could have made a massive difference, and it is a fairly low scoring game on both our parts, to be honest. It's 25 to Magikarp and 35 to me on primaries, and 24 to 32 on secondaries. As I said, possibly one of the biggest things that might have swung the game was that last unit of Sanguinary Guards making their charge on the Termagants. If they'd not got in, that would have been a 13-point swing, so I believe that the game might have ended in a draw if that was the case. Honestly, it was quite a good thing that Ninth only goes to 5 turns as well for me. Another turn would have seen those Hyrules wiping out the rest of my army. So overall, it was a really fun game, really enjoyed playing against Magikarp, and he was a great sport throughout. For me, my MVPs were the Teeth of Terror Captain and the Sanguinary Guard, both of which just performed really consistently throughout, particularly that lovely reroll on the Captain is amazing. In this matchup, I would say that the Castron Breachers were my worst unit. The only real thing that they did of note was killing those Gene Stealers early in the game, though to be fair, this wasn't the best matchup for them. Their arc rifles are far better against things like Space Marines or vehicles. And I must certainly have a healthy respect for the Dimetrodons and the Hyrules, particularly when they're moving twice in combined with the Swarm Lord. They can really get exactly where they need to be, and they take a non-trivial amount of firepower to gun down with 18 wounds each. They did a very adequate job of just smashing straight through my battle line. I'd say my takeaways for the game are that Sanguinary Guard by Warlord are very scary indeed, though we're still going to struggle against a 3+ invul save enemy. I think my list would be a bit more competitive if it was just 2 factions rather than 3, as I was really hurting for command points the entire game through, and to think a little bit harder about screening against Tyranids, as you know that something's going to be charging you turn 1, and I shouldn't have let my entire firebase get locked up by those Gene Stealers. So hope you enjoyed the rundown of the game. Feel free to post any criticisms of the list or the play down in the comments below. It'll certainly be interesting to read your thoughts, and of course I'll let you know how the other games in the tournament go. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. We'll certainly have more regularly scheduled 40k Tactics content coming out every day, so check back if you'd like to see more later. Finally, if you have been enjoying the videos on this channel, I would just like to mention that I do have a Patreon page, which you can find down in the video description. Making all the content does take a fair amount of time, so if you are enjoying regularly, any support is massively appreciated. Channel patrons get a few advantages, such as seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the channel's prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support the channel, then the link is down in the video description below. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.